Welcome, everybody, to Beyond the Shadows. I'm author and ghost historian Mike Ricksecker. Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. I've been moving, so you notice there's no backdrop behind me. Very plain. We'll have everything set up next week and get back to business as usual. Well, we didn't even have a show last week, so coming back this week, I am very happy to see that we had a fantastic turnout for Edge of the Rabbit Hole, where we had Lee Triana Brown talking about reincarnation, a little bit on psychic kids, and even like psychic kids and their involvement in reincarnation. As I bash the microphone around a little bit, it's a little bit of a different setup, so I'm not used to it being at the angle it's at right now. But yeah, it was very interesting. We're going to get into a little bit of that as well on this show. And I'm trying to think of a good name for it. Do spirits recognize color? And what I'm talking about, or I could say, do spirits recognize ethnicity? This comes from a lot of different angles. Do even like the color of spirits when we see them, do they mean things? So a lot of different things going on here. Of course, with our current climate, I'm not going to get very political here with this. With our current climate, this has kind of become an issue. There have been some questions kind of thrown out within the paranormal community. I've had some of these questions before, especially when we investigate locations that have like served the Underground Railroad, or an old plantation that has had slavery and things like that. So we'll touch base on some of those different topics and issues. Like I said, I'm not going to get too political here. This is not about my political beliefs or anything like that, but it's a hot topic right now, and it does play a bit into what we do as paranormal investigators, those that are psychic mediums, those that are connected to the spirit world, and even throughout the connected universe. And it does, like I said, we'll get into reincarnation too here a little bit, because it does play into that as well. So where I did want to start off, talking about the current political climate, and something that I guess I want to point out. I guess I was originally going to title, and I may still change the title of this, was Spirits Don't See Color. To a point, they don't. And when we do these shows, when we investigate the paranormal, we're cognizant of, what history has told us about this particular location. But we don't really, that isn't an issue for us. We know that history happened. Much of it is, very sad. It goes back thousands and thousands of years. It's not just recent. It's not just 150 years ago in America. It's thousands and thousands of years. Horrific things have happened. But something that I want to point out here, that I think is kind of interesting for you loyal viewers that have been either watching Haunted Road Media or Edge of the Rabbit Hole, or have listened to the podcast, because this will go up later, the Beyond the Shadows podcast that's on Spotify and iTunes and all that. I've told this story before, and I will start off this story again, that you guys are very familiar with. For new viewers and listeners, this will be a little bit new. My very first paranormal investigation. I've told this story many times, and you guys probably didn't realize something. So, in this particular story, my friend David and I are at my friend Lori's house, our friend Lori's house. And, we're in high school. It was like 1990 or something like that. And we're sitting in Lori's living room, just kind of shooting the breeze, talking about high school drama, all that sort of stuff. Lori suddenly tells us, "I think my house is haunted." Wow, really? Okay, cool. And, I had an interest in the paranormal. I'd been reading Hans Holzer, had some other paranormal experiences beforehand. So I'm definitely very interested, intrigued. I think at the time, it was either the year after or the year that I was reading the Amityville Horror. I think it was the year after. It was around that time. So I'm very piqued, very, very interested. So, all right, let's go upstairs. Let's investigate. So we go up there and, we're checking out the wall, listening to her stories about how she tacks things up and things fall down. This is like the haunting of the house. There's an old family cemetery in the backyard, all these different things. So very, very interesting. Well, not much is happening in the room while we're up there. So David decides to press his hand to the wall like that, puts his hand right on it. All of a sudden, he turns this bright, bright red, starts sweating profusely. And I'm looking at David. I'm like, oh, my God, what the heck is happening to my friend? And so he starts going like the wall to wall to wall in the house, seeing if there are any other hot spots like this, quote unquote hot spots. And so this is our first little paranormal investigation. This is the moment that I knew that I was going to be involved with this for the rest of my life. You guys have heard this story before. Those that are, the regulars down there in the chat room, those that, have been watching Haunted Road Media for years, have seen the different videos, have heard the different podcasts, all that. Something you don't know, and to me is completely freaking irrelevant. Lori is black. It's never mattered. That fact has never mattered before. Again, this is like 1990. It's a small town. There weren't very many black families in the community. Hers was one of them, and she was a very good friend. Never mattered. And in fact, the next year, she graduated a year ahead of me. I took her to prom. True story. I took her to prom. I'll show you real quick. I've blurred out the images to, I didn't go tracking them down and saying, hey, can I use your image? So I just blurred out the, so there we go. I was a junior at the time. And there I am putting the corsage on her. It wasn't, we were a small town, 20,000 people. It was definitely a very white community, but it didn't matter. And me telling the story for all of these years that I have been, this fact has never mattered. So, now in our, social climate, it is becoming a big deal. And, this was 30 years ago. So, like I said, I'm not getting political, but when we're out there investigating the paranormal and we're, doing an EVP session or something like that, that is a question that we don't really ask. We don't really ask, what color are you? It may, if we are investigating, and I'll give you an example. Like the Cheney Mansion, where the Underground Railroad was. That was one location in Jerseyville, Illinois, for the Underground Railroad. And why did the photo not come up? I lost the photo. What happened here? Oh, I know why. Okay, hang on a second. Technical difficulty. Mike forgot to do something. Hang on a second. This is what happens when you are in the middle of a move. There are pieces you need. Okay. I'm going to have to put it over here. It's on an external drive. So, I guess in the meantime, Victoria Monday, do spirits see more of a person's vibrational frequency, like their soul, rather than their ethnic makeup? That is an excellent question. We're going to get to that. And yes, I believe that is the case. So we'll wait for this to pop up here real quick. Everything just froze for a moment. There we go. Okay. There's the Cheney Mansion. All right. Wonderful location. So I do hope you guys have the privilege to go investigate there at some point. Tom McNicholas still down there, so he has been there. So there's a secret room there where the Underground Railroad, or this was kind of like a hidey hole for the Underground Railroad. This was actually discovered, well, several years ago, but it had been blocked, and for a number of years, it was kind of bricked up. And it was when they were doing some sewer work into the house that they discovered it. The round hole there, actually, there was a trap door that had gone up to the dining room. After they had discovered this there, they did a little more searching around the house. Okay, where's this come up at? And when they figured out, okay, this comes up into the dining room, they were looking at the spot on the floor, and they realized that the floor is a little different there. Where this actually came up. So they believe that there was a trap door from the dining room into this secret spot. And so I think I just saw Tom McNicholas. Yes, I've been there. Yes. Victoria Monday. Hidey hole is not a technical term. I don't know what else you want to call it. Maybe a secret room. It is very small. Yes, Tom. The logs are not original. They kind of put them there as an example of maybe a spot for people to sit. You can go in there, do EVP sessions, that sort of thing. It's it's a pretty interesting location. So so people that do go in there ask the different questions about the Underground Railroad and all of that, which is interesting. Now, getting into kind of Victoria's question here. Yeah, I have to kind of scroll back up. Quarantine Ghost is sending me the questions here. Okay, do spirits see more of a person's vibrational frequency like their soul rather than their ethnic makeup? So they do, like human spirits, they do see color, they do see gender. Now I'm talking human spirits. That are still lingering, that are basically earthbound, that are still lingering here on Earth. And while I haven't seen this as far as ethnicity myself, I've talked to a number of paranormal investigators who have that. When they're investigating a location like that, and there is a spirit that is maybe attached to that location that had been maybe a slave in the Underground Railroad, they do have to be very cognizant of that. What's interesting is I do have a story from that building that actually doesn't have to do with recognizing ethnicity, but does have to do with recognizing gender. And so, we could talk gender equality and things like that. But, they do recognize these different traits about us. And so this was with PD. Now, PD, this is his bedroom, investigating in this room one night. He purportedly does not like guys. He's fine with women. He was a drunk when he was alive. There's a lot of crazy stories about his drunkenness around the town. He would always wear his this military uniform, even though he was never really in the military. He liked to try to portray that he was a cadet. But he never actually made it as a full member of the military. But he would wear his uniform, so much so he would stink. He'd drink, sweat, be wearing the uniform night after night after night. The townspeople dumped him in, or a couple of guys at the bar or whatever, dumped him into a horse trough one night just to get him clean. So maybe that's why he doesn't like guys. I'm not quite sure of that reason, but there was that report. So I'm in that room doing, an investigation, and I started asking him. I'm trying to be, friendly to him, and offer him a drink since that's something that he liked to do. Would you like a drink? And I start feeling this pressure on my head. Pressure. I end up having to sit down. This is in the Cheney Mansion investigation video. There's 3 of them for that entire evening. And so pressure. I sit down. I'm given a piece of black tourmaline I keep in my hand to try to take that energy and put it in there. And it ends up cracking in my hand. Downstairs later, it ended up just falling apart into two pieces. Ended up having to leave the room. Carol Singer, who was running the investigations there at that time, said, yeah, PD put the whammy on you. So I have, in one of the Encounters of the Paranormal books, a story about, the whammy at Cheney Mansion. So PD does not like guys. So they do see things like that, like gender, like ethnicity. They do see that as human spirits. Now, I did want to talk. I said I was going to get to reincarnation. The interesting thing about this, when we go up to wherever that is, this seems to get cleansed out of us. So that spirit form, apparently, that's gone. Because when we get reincarnated, we are reincarnated into a variety of different people. It's not like, okay, I'm Mike, I'm a white guy right now, I get reincarnated as a white guy. People get reincarnated as all different ethnicities. They get reincarnated as different genders. There are people that, when they've done past life regressions, apparently have been reincarnated into an alien life form before. That there, that a soul is not just bound to this planet, and this is the only place that we go, that we do actually visit other planets, and we are reincarnated into alien life forms at times. So that is gone at whatever that home world is. It is just, your soul. And your soul, this is where I say spirit has no color. Your soul itself has no color, but somehow a human spirit still lingering on here is able to see and recognize and remember those sort of traits. But when we go up to wherever that is, that seems to get washed away. It's really pretty interesting how that seems to work like that. So let me get to some of these questions here that are being tossed my way. Victoria Monday, funny, when I was growing up, we didn't investigate the paranormal, we just experienced it. Well, yeah, and there were plenty of times when I was growing up that I experienced something because I wasn't investigating at the time. Like my first, significant paranormal experience, or seeing the shadow person Tom in my doorway, a lot of different things. But even now, as an adult, it's not every time I have some sort of paranormal experience that it was during an investigation. So there are times that I'm at a location not investigating and something happens, that's an experience. But when I'm purposely out there trying to research and investigate, that's an investigation. So Guha, not only the race of a spirit is unknown very often, but also their sexual orientation. Can a gay type human, male, female, be gay in the spirit world? Yeah. I do believe that. So I had a guy that I worked with when I was stationed at NSA. I was stationed at Fort Meade. I was working in the NSA building. And he lived in an apartment. This was an apartment, maybe it was a house, that had previously been the home to a gay couple, two gay men. And they were there as ghosts. And he had a working agreement with them that, he was fine to have them still hanging around the house. And, they had some boundaries that they set. But every once in a while, one of them would get like a little playful and mischievous and start messing around with things in the house. And Bill would kind of have to put his foot down, like, hey, you're not supposed to do that. So, yeah. And they will certainly keep their sexual orientation as that human spirit. Now, when they go to that other place, I think that whole thing's out the window. Because like I said, you can reincarnate as a man, you can reincarnate as a woman, whatever. So I don't think gender really plays into that in that kind of quote unquote home world. That's like gone. Gender, ethnicity, any of that. I think it's one of those that there are so many more important things other than that. It's irrelevant. I don't think we have those sorts of attributes up there, that it's more of, whether you call it vibrational level, maybe there's some sort of, maybe there's data that were stored in this vibration or what have you. We're not sure how it works up there. And there's so many different theories. I say theories. I know people have written like volumes, have written huge books on that place that we go to. But I don't know how much of it we can, I take it with a grain of salt. I don't know how much we can actually state is true and accurate when, we're getting the information from people who have had near-death experiences. And I don't discredit their near-death experience at all. People who have had these experiences report seeing very similar things. What's interesting are the differences that they see and experience. There are also those that do past life regressions, and some of these regressions come back with not necessarily this world and another life and another time, not necessarily an alien world. We get some of those in these past life regressions sometimes too, like I mentioned earlier. But sometimes these regressions are from that kind of quote-unquote home world. And so those are very interesting as well. How is this perceived from somebody that's having a past life regression? Because it's not necessarily a past life, it's home, right? So it's pretty interesting. Another one from Victoria. Do you think you are reincarnated into whomever you need to be in order to complete your life journey, to learn the lesson you need? That's a common belief, that we're down here to learn a lesson. We learn it, perhaps. I think sometimes we don't necessarily learn the lesson and we come back here to learn it again. And I bet there are even times that we regress, that we come down here and not only do we not learn what we were down here to learn, but I don't want to say forget, but we just regress and we do things against lessons that we learned in previous lives. And so then we come back and we learn some more. Now, what it is overall that we're supposed to be learning and becoming, I can't tell you. There are, what is it? I'll kind of throw the question out there. What exactly is it? Are we supposed to just be becoming the best soul that we could possibly be? What is the best soul? What does the ideal look like? The nicest, greatest, happiest person in the world? I don't know. I can't say it's an intelligence thing. How many people have seen Defending Your Life, right? So those that are like the lawyers for the people that are coming up and going through their, having their life review, these lawyers use like a very large percentages of their brain. So, it's an interesting take on what happens when we pass and we go into that world. What happens to us there? How does our life get reviewed? It's definitely very interesting. And if that's the way it works with a review, gender, race, ethnic group, creed, all of that, it's out the window. I think it's just who you are as a person. Alina the fam, some of us are meant to teach each other. Yeah. I think we're all here to learn things from other people. Imagine if you didn't learn anything from other people. Yeah. Even when you go to school, you learn something at least from the teacher, at least I hope. But as far as like life lessons, other than, studies like math and English and things like that, yeah, you do learn a lot by your interactions with other people. It could be an interaction that you have at the store with somebody, or in the line at Starbucks or whatever, or it could be a significant other that you're with for some time and it doesn't work out and then you move on, but you've learned something from that experience. And so yeah, and what do you do with that experience that you should have learned from? Do you make yourself a better person in this life? So I do wonder about that. Like, you go through all these trials and tribulations in this life, you learn from it, you make yourself a better person in this life. When you pass on, do you get a passing grade? Do you come back and you level up? I don't know. I mean, I think we like to speculate that that's the case. Yeah. Tammy Heitzman, wisdom. Yeah, wisdom, definitely wisdom. So, all right. So there's a little bit, some other things here that I wanted to touch on. So, I did want to throw out here, because in the Cheney Mansion, I was talking about the Underground Railroad, that room there. So one of my ancestors, everybody called him Father John Ricksecker. His full name was Johannes. Tom, you've seen his grave. Tom McNicholas has been to his gravesite. So he did help with the Underground Railway. So I just wanted to give a nice shout out to one of my ancestors there. So now I'm going to go to Black Bear Church here for a few minutes. I've had people sending me orb photos again that have, and it's fine, because some people are just just starting to get into the paranormal and they're learning, and so I've got an orb in a photo. What do you think? And it turns out to be dust, but they're still learning, which is fine. But there are real illuminated balls of light. And Black Bear Church here is a location in which I received one of those, or I had seen one of those. Got a fantastic photo of it. And this is it. So this one is more whitish. There's a little bit of a bluish color tint in there as well. And so there's some sort of spirit, some sort of entity. And so a lot of times I'll get asked, does the color of that ball of light mean something? Does that define it as a certain type of entity? So this is where we get into color of spirit. And it's a good question. So on plenty of paranormal investigations, I've seen, white, orbs, white balls of light like that. Blue, red, yellow. The yellow one was really interesting because of how it was transformative as well, where it was a bar of light. It was flying in the air. Basically transformed into the translucent yellow ball. So yellow bar of light, translucent yellow ball, and then it's dancing around the showroom of the boat. What was that? So was that a fairy? Maybe. Does that make it a spirit, or a fairy spirit? Now that becomes a debate in and of itself. Or is that just another type of being, and that's its actual physical attributes. But a lot of people, we as humans like to assign colors to all kinds of things. So like all the shadow people stories that I get, the different colored eyes, and some people will try to say, well, the different colored eyes means all these different things, and so like a red-eyed one is of course all evil, and ones that have blue or purple eyes, have different functions. And I think that's just us, because we like to categorize and compartmentalize things that to us, different colors have certain meanings. And so then when we see this in, a certain entity, then it must be what we believe this color to mean. Well, okay. So does that mean every person, every human being that has blue eyes, they have these specific personality traits, and humans who have brown eyes have these specific personality traits, and these who have green eyes have these other personality traits, those who have gray eyes have these other, and it's like every single person that have those color eyes? No, I mean, everybody has their own personalities. So it's really difficult to say what a specific color for a spirit actually means. Of course, everybody talks about like the lady in white, seeing that. I mean, that's an apparition, which is of course very, very different. See some other questions coming in here. Kathy Cilento, do you think the conscious mind, which remembers and knows everything, so to speak, after we pass, how would we remember that we need what we need to fix if our conscious is not with us, or is the soul more? Yeah, that's the question of what are we here to learn? Yeah. Well, we have that whole unfortunate thing, for the most part, of having that type of memory wipe. Now, some people do remember past lives. When we had Lee Brown on here, on Edge of the Rabbit Hole, she was talking about her son remembering things from a past life. And many people, do remember some things from a past life. So at times that deletion, that erasure is not complete. And I also believe that when we go to our home world, for lack of a better term, that we remember all those past lives and who we were and what we did. And I think it becomes not just a review of the life that you just had, but how that relates to all your other lives as well. I think part of that erasure, we're supposed to be down here learning something, is that you're given a whole new life to work with. Let's see if what you're down here and you're supposed to be working on, I think that you're supposed to be figuring out what that is. That it's just not handed to you like, okay, this is what you need to work on, go work on it. It would be like, you're given a task to cut down, 100 trees. And you're like, I'm going to cut down 100 trees, and you go cut them down. Or your task is to, build 1,000, lamps or whatever. So you build 1,000 lamps, or I'm looking at one of my guitars, you have to write so many songs. And so you write so many songs. I mean, it's not cut and dry like that. The discovery of it is part of the process. And when you discover for yourself what that is, you're able to learn and retain it much, much better than if it's just told to you. It's that old saying, there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. Somebody can tell you this is the way you need to go. This is what you need to do. But it's a lot different than you discovering for yourself that's what you need to do, and that's where you need to go. When that clicks in your mind, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, now you're on that journey that you're supposed to be, and you know it through and through. When somebody else tells you, you're always kind of like, I don't know. They could be right, but maybe not. And they could be trying to drill into you, no, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. But a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. So I hope that explained it. All right. So let's see. That's interesting, Betty. So she says, my father did not believe in ghosts, but did believe in a spirit of a person. He was born in 1897. So I'm going to ask, I guess, so he believed the person had a soul, and I'm guessing, went on to heaven or whatever his beliefs were, but he didn't believe that they could remain as a ghost and haunt down here or hang out down here or linger here. I'm guessing that's what it might be. All right. And Victoria, I think I'm here to learn the banjo. Nice. Scotty Fox, I think spirits can manipulate the forms we see, so maybe colors aren't really relevant. Or it just, I don't think the colors are necessarily relevant. If it's a blue ball of light or a red ball of light, that, okay, there's an entity there. I don't think it necessarily, has anything to do with their personality or, what exactly that, or who exactly that spirit is. I think it just, I mean, it could just even be an interaction with the environment. So is there something about their spirit that when, it hits 90 degrees and 86% humidity, that their spirit happens to turn a red color instead of a blue color or a whitish color, or, maybe that's being a little simplistic, but it could be something like that, or if we want to get a little more ethereal or interdimensional, do the colors have to do with if they're interacting with us from one plane of existence as opposed to another plane of existence? Like if one of these entities is actually time traveling as opposed to another one is visiting us from the fifth dimension, do those colors change? Are some of these actually extraterrestrials, and that's how they are manifesting here to observe us? I mean, there's a lot of different possibilities that these could be. So, yeah, it's we could ask those questions all night. Betty says, Mike, you said you saw the spirit rise on the third night, white ball of light, circle casket 3 times, rose, lingered, then left. Interesting. Victoria Monday, wouldn't a white ball of light encompass all the colors, since white is a combination of all colors? Ergo, spirits would be white, not a race thing, but a combination of colors. Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the definition, right? If you look at the color spectrum, right? White is all colors, black is the lack of any colors. So, and that's really difficult for us to understand as we grow up, because the way for us to make black, right, as humans, if you're going through your box of crayons, is to take all the colors. Like if you run out of a black crayon, is to take all the colors and mash them on top of each other. But that's not the way it actually works. Yeah, white is all colors, and so again, as humans, we like to make a significance of that. That that means that we are from all wavelengths, right? Yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it. So yeah, we certainly, and you're right, it's not a race thing. It's certainly just the combination of all the colors. And we see apparitions usually as white. The way we represent spirit a lot of time, like in our popular culture, movies, books, things like that, is usually is like a white ball of light or a white entity or something like that. But again, we're not talking white as a race. We're talking white as in the energy it's emitting. So, yeah, Sharon Lane, perception of color is an earthly object is different from person to person. So wouldn't that be the same for ethereal objects? So there is kind of the issue that some people are colorblind. So, two people could be experiencing a spirit in a different way if you're talking about pure color like that. Like I have a little bit of an issue between like dark blues and purples. I will confuse them sometimes. So I don't really necessarily call that color blindness at all, but sometimes I will have a hard time telling the difference between the two. But there are others that either they're fully colorblind or have different problems with like greens or reds or oranges and things like that. So there's varying degrees of that from person to person to person. So yeah, that could play into the mix as well. So Sharon Lane, great point. I worked in interior design, and eye surgeon told me that human beings perceive color differently because light bouncing off of the cornea. So yeah, it's and that's the way color works. So your light source coming in bounces off of something at a particular wavelength, and then goes into your eye as whatever that wavelength is. And so your eyes, the cornea, basically the receptors in your eyes have to be able to interpret that wavelength, in some fashion. So with black, basically there isn't a bouncing is what happens with that. It is lack of light when it comes to black, which is kind of, with white, it's all colors coming in. So, and then, basically depending on the pigment that's in something, determines that wavelength. And so light bounces off into so I guess here bounces off, or it comes from that light source, bounces off me, black. So I guess it's not really bouncing. Okay, fine. Here, right? Into there. And then you pick it up on your end. Tom McNicholas, I lost my sense of smell and would hate to be colorblind as well. That would be difficult. I had a friend in high school who fell off a hayride, banged her head, and lost her sense of smell. Yeah, that was pretty rough. It gets really rough when there's like a gas leak or something. It's if something's burning, it's not good. Dishing out cookies, quarantine ghost. All right. Good job. So, well, I guess I see Diane Hilbert asked. She said, "I want a cookie, please." Oh, yeah, quarantine ghost. Who else? I'm going backwards in the chat. Nice. Robert Hannah thinks tennis balls are green. It's interesting to me. Like older ones kind of were. So they were like, at least to me. Most tennis balls are yellow, but there are some tennis balls that I think are like almost like real light lime green. So I'm with you there, Robert. So Victoria M. All stories from Ohio started out with, I had a friend who fell off a hayride. The story's not actually from Ohio. She lived in North Dakota. I was on a class trip to Washington, D.C. It was a close-up project, and we went there to learn about the United States government. And so there were kids from all states that were there, and she happened to be from North Dakota. So there you go. All right. So let me know if you guys have any more questions. That about wrapped it up for what I wanted to discuss for this evening. So, the use of color in the supernatural, and how, we have those social connotations with color, how that comes out in a paranormal investigation, how ghosts see color, what happens to color in the afterlife when we go to that home world. I always call it the home world. People will say beyond the veil, but a lot of people also use that term as far as when we pass on and there's still lingering ghosts. They're on the other side of a life, but they're still lingering, so I don't really consider that beyond the veil. To me, beyond the veil would be you're in that home world. So, I don't know. We have all these crazy terms, right? Calorie-free cookies, nice. Robert Hanna, what is the name of the town you live in? I'm now in North Ridgeville. I've come full circle. So this was a town that I lived in the first 3 years of my life. I'm not too far from where that house was. I'm in a different neighborhood. This neighborhood didn't exist back then. So I'm trying to think, it would be that way, that old house. Yeah. Tom McNicholas, why are there different colored orbs? We've been talking about that for about 15 minutes here, buddy. So rewind. Rewind. For the viewers and listeners, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm not going to answer the question because our listeners and viewers coming back for the rewatch would have already got that. So, all right. That's going to wrap it up. Victoria, I haven't gone by the old house yet this time. I did the last time I moved back to Ohio 4 years ago. That was like the first thing that I did. So I saw it 4 years ago. It's not too far. I can always, slip by there real quick. Let's go ahead and get, I know this is a shorter show, but it's been a long day with unpacking and everything. So we're closing it up early. So I do want to thank Quarantine Ghost for feeding me for all the different questions. Really appreciate that, and for passing out the cookies and all those wonderful things. We'll get to the first Deep Down the Rabbit Hole Patreon patrons. Tom McNicholas, B3 Airspace, Pamela Queen, Joe Chandler, Andrew Cox, Dustin Samario, and Trucker David Y. Tom must have been when he was in the bathroom. Yeah, it would have been when if you took a bathroom break in the middle of this time, it was when you went into the bathroom. Yeah, I missed you guys too. It's always fun doing this on Tuesday nights. So, all right, let's get to the participants tab. Let's do this. Brandon Wallace, thanks for joining us tonight. There's Kathy Salinto and Christopher Stanton. Thank you guys as always. Eva Gellert, Diane Hilbert, Hunter Road Media's Fairy Queen. Great to see you. Guha, great to see you as well. Grand old folks, that's Betty Lange. There's Jennifer Bloomer. Robert Hanna, thank you as well. Scotty Fox, thank you very, very much. Sharon Lane, Tammy Heitzman. There's Tom McNicholas. Tim Schoen, Hunter Road Roast, helps you hunt ghosts, which I don't have. I'll have it for next week. And Victoria Monday. And yes, I am getting tired if you're wondering. So it's just a long day, lots of work. There's Katie Palmer and Helen Espinoza. Thank you both very, very much. Jill Nimchinsky, Alina the Fam. Lots of fantastic people in the chat that are in the house right now. All right, so Tim is wondering if North Ridgeville is anywhere near Lorraine or OSR. So, yeah, near Lorraine, not too far from Lorraine. OSR that's like a good hour and a half south of here. So OSR is closer to where I graduated high school from. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for tonight. On tap next week, we have a special treat. Howie Noeldishin. He does the... those of you that are familiar with Terra Paranormal, the paranormal web comic, this has been disconcerting here lately. I've seen this happen several times here recently where artists, filmmakers, writers, the work's getting stolen and reproduced by somebody else. And this has happened with Howie. Now, he's been doing Terra Paranormal for years. He would do the comics in the Taps Para magazine and do the artwork of basically Taps, the ghost hunters. And he's, Terra, he's branched off. He's made Terra a bigger thing. And, she has like her adventures as a paranormal investigator, which is very, very cool. And he does other artwork as well. But there's this, I guess it's like some sort of game company or something that has actually taken the Terra Paranormal name and, they're trying to do their own thing with it, even though he has like it fully trademarked and everything. Crazy stuff. It's shown up as like some sort of Nintendo game or something ridiculous. But I've also seen this happen recently here with the Booth brothers, and one of their films is now a show on Acorn. It's like the same name, same premise, whole thing. It's like, man, what in the world's going on here? So we're gonna have Howie on next week. We're gonna show off some of his artwork, and we're gonna talk about this issue and how it's kind of running rampant right now. So he'll be on next week. I don't know yet for Beyond the Shadows, so I'll sit down and figure that out. But we will be back again next week. We'll be going full steam ahead here for a while. So and we'll have the backdrop next week as well. That'll do it for tonight, everybody. Thanks for joining in. And all the well wishes that you guys had for my move, I appreciate that. It's been a lot of work. Those of you that are in the know know that months ago when stuff happened that it's been a weird time. I'll just say that. So but is what it is. Life goes on. New things are happening here. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. So we'll catch you guys later. Have a great night. Till next time.